Oh, hello there. Yes, Monday. Easter holes. Sun's out. Cat's in. Looking good. God is smiling on us today. Yes, anyway, speaking of things smiling on us, the second part gushed out yesterday from the New Culture Forum. And this one's about Christianity, and I thought we'd spend just a small amount of time today. I know it was a long one yesterday, but just a small amount of time today having a look at that. So let's dive into the intro.
If Britain was a garden, Christianity has been the gardener for 2,000 years in many ways.
The Christian idea transforms the Greek, the Hellenist idea, and gives it a purpose and a direction.
It's baked into the very fabric of all of our institutions, our law, our constitutional monarchy.
If we want to keep the Western culture alive, biblical literacy is fundamental because it is partly what made Western culture.
Well, yes. I mean, in many ways, that is true. You do need an understanding of such things, and at least in part, you do need to understand something about the Christian tradition, also about other religions. I think if you can understand anything, look at the Americans with the invasion of Iraq. We'll come back to that one in a bit. You can see the effects of Christianity on the UK. We live in what might best be described in many ways as theocracy. We have a constitutional monarch who is the head of the church. We have a church which is automatically represented in the House of Lords and passes laws. If you don't know the canon is always a slightly problematic concept. It's very kind of 18th, 19th century, and you can always argue about what exactly you should be looking at, but just generally speaking, yes, it's true. I mean, if you don't know the Bible, then you will end up with, well, you'll end up looking like Donald Trump, standing there like it's something that's going to bite you, which in his case it might. Anyway, leaving that one aside, yes, the programme then moves on into some slightly odd areas, which I'll just kind of highlight briefly. Anyway, here's a woman, second woman, got another woman, talking about racism, or women, or I'm not really quite sure. Anyway, let's have a look.
Lest we forget, women in the West took way too long to get there, but to poo-poo the West and say the only thing about it is that people are still under the shackles of racism is to poo-poo the incredible necessary and right gains that women have made that are so contrary to almost most other countries in the world.
Yes. Anyway, you might feel slightly confused by that, like I cropped that out of context, but no, that's her. That's the clip of her here, and a lot of this particular segment on Christianity does talk a lot about women. But in a, what I would argue is quite a confused way, a bit like Zoe. Yes, I mean, leaping from you can't be racist because we have a reasonably-ish history, a 100-year history of giving women the vote or something. And it comes down to, a fundamental problem with this. This is designed to produce an argument about the proper way that history should be taught, which is all about important people, kings and queens and stuff like that. So this makes a number of sort of very spurious points about Christianity and women. I would argue, watch it for yourself. You can disagree with me by all means, but it seems to suggest that somehow in the first century CE that the roots of feminism and a positive view to women were embedded in Germanic tribes, which something ends up with women being equal. It kind of fudges it and manages to mention, well, aristocratic women, yeah, because that's that view of history. It's all about what rich people do, and this is where this series, I think, is going to fall down. I haven't seen the other ones yet. I'll post individual ones on that. But a libertarian view of the world doesn't contain a particular understanding of power relationships. and as such it will do things like take an individual example of somebody doing something in 674 or whatever it might be and generalise the hell out of it without having a context that that person was the Queen. Or indeed, I mean, some of the aspects where they're talking about the Crusades. They go to the Second Crusades because, let's face it, the first one's problematic. Have a look at where that ended up, fact fans. And yes, it suggests that, weren't the Christians lovely because one of them stopped a massacre of Jewish people in France? And you're thinking, no, I think the Crusades have gone down as one of the most barbarous episodes of European and Islamic history. And again, we come on to a problem because, again, this show is very, very desperate to talk about how great Christianity is and how great those sort of Abrahamistic elements of it are, whilst ignoring the third Abrahamistic religion, which, let's face it, at a time of the Crusades was in many ways the burning fire of what we might call Enlightenment values, let's say, compared to the Europeans. Anyway, yeah, this is the basic problem here. This is designed to give you a very, very particular view of the world. And this next clip really does show where it's coming from. So, final thing, and then we'll see.
Which, at least as it used to be taught, and that the way it's taught now is changing, unfortunately, used to be based on the idea that you are actually a sinful person and that you should strive to be better. Whereas the current orthodox, I would say, in British schools at least, is you are a marvellous person and you should be outraged by everything that's wrong with other people. That is a big change and a regrettable change in my view.
Well, no, it isn't. That's not what happens in schools. I'm old enough to remember the old-fashioned religious instruction, which is where you'd learn all about Jesus and God and those kind of things, and you might look at other religions like Hinduism, but they were just a bit silly because they had too many gods in them, patently. Yeah, they all had different heads, didn't they, and all that kind of thing. Not like the Catholic Church. They have a sensible number of saints instead, don't they? Anyway, as I say, do have a look at this. I think that anyone that has a vague understanding of history would find this extremely problematic, but that's realistically about what the new culture forum is all about. They aren't about truth or facts or people thinking for themselves. They'd prefer it if the masses didn't really do that. What they really want is their particular worldview, and their particular worldview is one that is very, very libertarian and comfortable. It's about comfortable middle-class people sitting around having earnest discussions about how lovely everything is, when it might not be. And you do get that sense from this video that there's an awful lot patently that's being left out here. Be it about the Crusades, or about women, or about the very nature of the church. You just have to ask any of the female popes, for example, about the role of women in the church, don't you? Anyway, on that bombshell, I'll leave you to it. Have a nice rest of the day. I will produce another one of these when I see the next New Culture Forums one. Have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy the sunshine.